property investor said no to a $2,000 fix. The end result? It ended up costing them over $30,000 and months of lost rent. Hello, my name is Nathaniel Mackay and I manage a property portfolio in Emerald, Queensland. Today I'm going to tell you a true story, and I'm telling it because it's the single best example I have of why I preach on being proactive when it comes to investment properties. By the end of this video, you're going to know exactly how termites destroy investment properties in the Emerald region and why most property investors don't see it coming, and what it actually costs to prevent these issues from occurring. Now, why should you listen to me? Well, I manage over $90 million in property assets, have conducted thousands of inspections, dealt with hundreds of maintenance requests, and leased hundreds of properties. I do this day in, day out. This story is one I have unfortunately watched unfold firsthand. Here's something that every successful property investor I know eventually learns. Property investment rewards proactive thinking and punishes reactive thinking. Every single time. The property investors who have just purchased a property don't believe this. For the property investors who have been in the game for years and years and years, and after managing properties for years and years, it's very clear that proactive beats everybody else every single time. Think of it like going to a dentist. A checkup and a clean cost you next to nothing, and 10 minutes of mild discomfort. Nowadays, dentists are a lot more expensive, but still, compared to ignoring any issues for 5 years, finding out you have a root canal and it costing you tens of thousands of dollars and a lot of pain to deal with a few root canals, nothing is better than dealing with the issue while it is still small, or even better, preventing the issue before any issues even occur. This is exactly the mindset shift I want to walk you through today. And the best way I know how to do that is tell you what happens when a property investor does not do that. So let me tell you about a double-story investment property that I manage. The unfortunate thing is, what I'm about to tell you is something that does not happen rarely. I advise constantly on a specific thing to do. Property investors look at the bank account and say, I don't want to do that. Then after managing the property for a few years, the issue that I advised to resolve at the beginning now is costing the property investor a large amount of money. It pains me to see that. And I want in this video to break down how to avoid all of that happening and to explain why you need to be proactive. Termites are extremely active in central Queensland. This isn't a maybe. This is one of the highest risk regions in the state for termite activity, largely because of the climate. When I took on this particular property, it was in Blackwater. Blackwater is known for poor quality houses and a termite breeding ground. I recommended immediately, as we took over the property, to get a termite barrier installed on all of their properties. So this property investor did not just have one property. They had multiple. I said, let's get chemical termite barriers on each property, and so you're set up for the next 10 years. Guess what? The owner said no. It's not a huge amount of money in the end. A termite barrier installation typically runs around a few $1,000s depending on the size of the property and a few other factors. To the owner at the time, it felt like an unnecessary expense on the property that looked completely fine. And well, the property was completely fine. So we proceeded without it. He said, no, I don't want to do that. And after I did push back, gave my recommendation again, in the end, I respect the property investor's recommendation because it is their property investment. Then for the next year, I looked like an idiot because there was no issues. No sign of an issue, life went on, tenant paid rent, no issues. Then during a routine inspection, I found it. I was walking through the downstairs area and one of the roof panels had fallen down or was coming loose. And thankfully, I have built and learned to have a very detailed eye. From the corner of the room, when I was walking into the room, I saw an unfortunate familiar pattern that I've seen at other properties. The roof sheet was here and the roof was here and it was hanging down. And in that little section there, I saw that termite pattern. And I'm like, gosh, you've got to be kidding me. So I pulled out my torch, looked down, looked in between the roof sheet and the framing, and with the torch, looked down the beams, and it was full of termite trails. Full of it. This was not a small patch near a security board or about to enter the property. This was throughout the entire property. And it's a double story. And if you know about termites, you know that termites are going to affect the structure of the property. And if there's termites damaging the middle that's holding up the top story, that's a serious issue. The question is, what does this mean? We can't simply patch this up and move on. The property had to be vacated. Thankfully, the tenant was already breaking a lease, which meant that they were already vacating. But that means we can't advertise that property for rent, and we can't lease that property until this issue is resolved. And that means, first, getting the property treated, and B, repairing all of that damage. So it's going to be sitting empty for months. This is a work in progress, by the way. It's not a finished product, but I'm telling the story as we've dealt with the major issues, and we're currently in the process of getting the termites treated and getting the repairs done. From previous experiences, by the time we get the property to lease again, it's going to cost the owner at least $30,000. From treating it to doing major repairs throughout the entire property, and including the rent that the owner could be receiving if they did not have a termite infestation, you're looking at probably 30 grand plus. That's a lot of money, and compared to a $2,000 termite barrier, it seems like nothing. Yet, even after I advised the property investor of the situation and pleaded to get a termite barrier installed, they were still hesitant. Still hesitant. Now, this story is not just about termites. It's about how you make decisions regarding each of your investment properties and why sometimes your property manager may be asking you to spend more money than you want, and why that's actually a good thing. Before we get into that, let's actually look through how to avoid termites damaging your property. Number one is a no-brainer. Get a termite barrier installed. If you don't already have one, Full Pest Management. We regularly use Full Pest Management to do a lot of our termite barriers. They are a great company and reliable. They've been around for years and years and years. I would recommend using them to get a termite barrier installed. Please do it immediately. Immediately after watching this video, get a termite barrier installed. Second, if you haven't had a termite barrier installed, you will also want to get a visual termite inspection, also known as a VTI. A visual termite inspection is where a pest company goes through the property and highlights if there are any active termites, and also advises any recommendations to prevent further termite activity at the property. Along with this annual visual termite inspection, if you do that every year, when the inspector comes, they will look at the termite barrier and advise if the termite barrier needs to be replenished. Typically, you're looking at replenishing the termite barrier around 2 to every 3 years. The third lesson, and this is, let's be clear, the real lesson, it is to stop thinking about maintenance as an expense. Start thinking about maintenance as an insurance against a much larger expense. When the owner said no to a $2,000 termite barrier, he wasn't saving money. He was simply deferring a much larger cost and adding a significant amount of risk on top of it. That's the trap. Reactive decisions always feel cheaper in the moment, and that is because they absolutely are cheaper in the moment. But in the end, they are never cheaper. So the action to take from this video is, if you have an investment property in central Queensland and you don't know whether you have a termite barrier, it probably means you don't have a termite barrier. So get a termite barrier installed and schedule an annual visual termite inspection. That is hands down one of the best ROI things you can do for your property right now. If you want somebody to have this much detail when managing your investment property, please feel free to reach out. I would love to have a chat. And if this video was useful, make sure to hit subscribe. I share these real stories and lessons regularly with property investors.